Eat bark? Good bark, Jerahemi said, offering me a slab. No, thank you, I said. I don't want to keep you all awake if you're ready to sleep. Sleep? Helpak said. No sleep. Tell story. Now, I hated to even think what a Hork-Bajir story might be like. Let's face it, sweet or not, Hork-Bajir are not big talkers. What stories do you tell? I asked, cringing a little at the possibilities. I felt like I was asking great-grandma to tell me about her youth, you know, like the result wasn't exactly going to be Party of Five. What? When in the entire history of the universe has something not being like Party of Five been a bad thing? And considering Tobias actually ends up enthralled in the story, are we saying the Hork-Bajir Chronicles is, in fact, Party of Five?
Shows us all the places that we want to go and look. Superbook! Superbook!
The framing device for this Chronicles book is Tobias flying over to the free colony of Hork-Bajir hiding in the mountains. The colony has grown in numbers since we last saw it in number 13 The Change. The Animorphs have apparently been catching injured Hork-Bajir during conflicts and starving the Yeerks out of them. Meanwhile, the two original freed Hork-Bajir, Jerahemi and Kit Helpak, have had a child. Tobias settles down for the evening, and Jerahemi begins Hork-Bajir campfire story time, and so submitted for approval of the Midnight Society. This is the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. It should be noted that this is the only Chronicles book with multiple narrators, and as such we get to see the beginnings of the Yeerk invasion of space from perspectives from all the major sides involved. The story begins 5 years before the Andalite Chronicles, during 1966 by Earth calendars, and we meet Aldrea, a young Andalite female stationed with her family on the Yeerk homeworld, her father being the Andalite to establish contact with the Yeerks and teach them about the world beyond their own planet. Yep, Aldrea is the daughter of Ciro, namesake of Ciro's kindness, the Andalite law that says to not do that. Aldrea witnesses a confrontation between her father and the warrior Aloran, who you probably recognize as the host body for Visor 3. Aloran shows Ciro a holographic recording of several Yeerks and Geet hosts ambushing and killing some Andalite guards and breaking into a few landed spacecraft. One Andalite spotted the advancing Geeds. "Hold fast," he called. The Geeds kept moving. The Geed with the shredder held it concealed behind his back. Okay, holographic recording, you want to play this game? We'll play this game. How do you record in 3 dimensions? Is it a series of cameras placed in grids, or dozens of mini satellites recording from orbit? And is all this footage put together to compose a 3-dimensional image? Or is it like some kind of advanced echolocation machine that constructs shapes by bouncing vibrations around, and then the shapes are filled in and colored by reference images? However these images are constructed, it's gotta be a pretty complicated setup, right? So why is nobody watching this crap? Andalite security forces seem to be pretty nil. They don't even have a guy watching the monitors while eating an entire box of donuts. Hell, they don't even have biofilters around their secure areas. You'd think some proper security measures would have to be taken when the general order for the guards is to not fire on the Yeerks under any circumstance. I know, Geeds are basically crippled chimps, but you were asking for this, guys. So, yeah, it's the day the Yeerks rebelled against the Andalites and began the war. What did they get away with? "These 400 Geeds overwhelmed my warriors," Lauren said, building back to anger again. "And then they seized the 4 attack ships and 2 transports that were on the ground at the time. Oh. The computer estimates that with advanced planning and careful coordination, they may have embarked with as many as 250,000 Yeerks. Oh. Okay. Where to start? So what we have here are 6 ships, 4 fighters, and 2 transports, being piloted by a bunch of slugs who weren't even aware this technology existed a few months ago in the bodies of purple monkeys with club feet carrying around less than the population of Lincoln, Nebraska, with only 400 host bodies to go around, all of which were occupied at the time of the shipjacking. This is the force that'll prove to be the Andalites' biggest foe? This is like a U-boat piloted by some teenagers who've taken yacht lessons going against the entire British naval force. Remember, this takes place 5 years before the Andalite Chronicles. That book pretty much opened up by stating that the Andalites were losing the war against the Yeerks. So we have that much time for the Yeerks to build up a force to overpower one of the strongest militaries in this section of space. The only serious advantage the Yeerks have against the Andalites in that regard is that the Yeerk reproduction results in hundreds of new Yeerks, while the Andalites breed like pandas. I can just imagine that once the Yeerks were sure they escaped the Andalites, they ordered most of the Yeerks in the transport ships to do the Yeerk version of the Humpty Hump. The ship escapes into Z-space, because Andalite space security is even less secure than their ground security. At least the ground security has holographic cameras or something. Small group of underpowered ships trying to avoid a huge superior military force. This reminds me of Battlestar Galactica. Because in that show, when the Galactica built a dominating army and successfully invaded several planets, do you remember that? You don't? Because that makes no sense, that's why. The whole Ciro's kindness theme, it seems kind of weak in that respect. I mean, it's probably another case of the horrid Andalite propaganda machine, but pinning this on Ciro seems kind of silly. He taught them technology in hopes to establish a positive relationship with the race. He's hardly to blame over a minor fraction of the species stealing a few vehicles because Andalite security sucks. This just feels like a guy discovering his car got jacked by a black person because he forgot to lock the doors, which causes him to shake his fist in the air and scream, "Damn you, Abraham Lincoln!" 2 years pass, and Ciro has been pushed into jobs that'll get him out of the way of the Andalite military, which sucks for Aldrea, as she is one of the few Andalite females who really wanted Trump tradition of females getting the scientist roles and instead become a warrior, something females just don't become because they are naturally smaller and have less effective tail blades. But instead of being close to where the action is, the Ciro family, which consists of Ciro, Aldrea, and Aldrea's mother and brother, end up getting a National Geographic project to a planet known only as Sector 5 RG215784. The planet is mostly dead due to an asteroid strike millions of years ago, but there are steep valleys and places that hold in an atmosphere, and those are the homes of many massive trees that makes Earth's redwoods look like toothpicks. The valley eventually dips down into an area of blue mist that the Andalite sensors can't penetrate. Ciro's job is to make contact with the indigenous species, a species known as the Hork-Bajir. It's then that we meet our second narrator, a Hork-Bajir named Dak Hammy. Dak Hammy is what the Hork-Bajir call a seer, one of the few of the species that can obtain an intelligence higher than a 4-year-old. The Hork-Bajir are peaceful, stupid, tribal herbivores who harvest and eat bark from the many gigantor trees. There's no reason not to be peaceful, as there are apparently no carnivores on this planet. Sure, there are various monsters roaming around the blue mist, but as long as the Hork-Bajir stay out of that, they're safe. And when you're safe, you see no reason to change the status quo. Seers? They have a bad knack of changing the status quo, so Dak Hammy is uncomfortable in his role as the only guy who wonders just what is beyond the blue mist and what the flowers that bloom in the sky at night look like up close. The Ciro family lands, and a few weeks go by with only brief contact between them and the Hork-Bajir, the latter having no idea what to make of their visitors. Finally, Dak Hammy builds up enough nerve to approach them and starts up a conversation with Aldrea.
"Where is your tribe tree?" I asked Aldrea.
"Not here,"
she said.
"On another planet."
I nodded. "Yes, not here. What is another planet?"
"Do you see the stars at night?"
she asked me. When Mother Sky is dark, she shows us her flowers.
Well, each of those flowers is a star, like your own sun, only very far away.
Jackal said, no. But I said, sun is sun. Mother Sky's flowers are flowers.
They may look like bright flowers, but they are suns, hundreds of suns, thousands, I mean, there are more stars than there are trees. They look small because they are far away. Yeah, when making contact with a primitive tribal species, obviously the first thing to do is directly challenge their spiritual beliefs. Well, being the only Hork-Bajir who actually gives a shit about learning, Dak Hammy immediately latches onto Aldrea as a source of knowledge, and the two become sort of friends, but not really. Dak Hammy basically sees Aldrea as a library with organs, and Aldrea tolerates Dak Hammy because he's the only one she can really talk to. Her father is suffering from depression from his disgrace, her mother, a biologist, is too busy cataloging new plant life, and her brother does nothing but play Andalite video games all day. Otherwise, these two aren't really all that good of friends. Aldrea is kind of a sour bitch, always going on about how her life sucks and using Dak Hammy to stop from going totally stir-crazy, and Dak Hammy is too naive to know better. Eventually, Dak Hammy will know better, but by that point he won't have anyone else to turn to and will stay with Aldrea begrudgingly. And a lot of Animorphs fans consider this to be one of the series' best relationships? Well, to Kay Applegate's credit, she's never written a doughy-eyed, we-were-meant-for-each-other romance movie relationship, but this one is dysfunctional with a capital Dis. The Hork-Bajir I've encountered barely function at the level of a small child, my father said sadly. The Yeerks were so fascinating, highly intelligent, yet so limited physically. It's as if the Hork-Bajir are the exact opposite. Physically impressive, mentally, well, simple. I think Dak Hammy is different, I said. He can read now, and write, and he can do basic math. He's up to calculus. I think he may be capable of n-dimensional geometry. Yeah, so there's a bit of a gap between normal Hork-Bajir and Sears, is there? Other fucking lizard man is better at math than I am.